The Lottery, Bloody Billion. Chapter 4. The Bounty Begins. They don't gotta aim right when the money pays for misses. Morning didn't come. It barged in and flipped the lights hard, a landlord with keys and no manners. The sky was a dull bruise stalled over concrete, and the big municipal screen across from the river cut opened with a jolt. Anthem, logo, clean-lined font like it had been ironed. Rook was awake already, spine against cold pillar, knees half bent, knife on thigh, the way you keep a hand on a truth you can't afford to misplace. Dane was up too, eyes glassy from not sleep, and two careful rails he wore like invisible armor. Little Ty blinked out of dream with no stretch or yawn, just a small switch from child to lookout. Under their bridge, time didn't travel, it paced. The host's teeth lit like stadium lamps. "Public service announcement," he said, voice sugared and bulletproof. "Effective immediately. Verified proof of death for any lottery winner will be compensated with a bounty of $1 million. He didn't say it like policy. He said it like a lottery ticket that had married a funeral, and nobody had the nerve to object. The number slapped the city so hard, you could feel the block lean. The drone hum thickened. Sirens switched from suggestion to anthem. The bookies, half of them already set up with laminated boards, erased and rewrote columns in frantic green, a rain of digits that looked like the language greed prefers. People who'd been whispering maybe all night said, "Hell yes," with their shoes. Someone popped a bottle at 9 a.m. because sobriety had nothing to contribute to a conversation about new rules. Dane snorted a laugh that had no humor in it, and a lot of math. They didn't even wait for lunch. Damn. Rook said nothing. He rolled his shoulders until the ache announced itself, and then asked it to sit down. The billion hadn't gotten closer, but the path to dying for it just got shorter. He could almost hear Ledger grin somewhere, polite, approving, dangerous. Men like Ledger never minded when the city amplified their job description. Ty tugged his sleeve. "Does that mean they get money for you?" He said it flat, not scared, fact-checking the apocalypse. "Means they get money for trying," Rook said. "Proof won't be picky in the first hour. Everybody's going to pretend they know the rules and sell the wrong bodies to the right bidders." On the screen, a smaller graphic popped, "How to get paid." Rook watched the bullets march, time-stamped recording, tags on body parts like sad grocery labels, geotag proof, 2 witnesses or a uniformed officer on camera to verify. The kind of procedural cruelty that turns a city into a spreadsheet. Then the sub-bullets, softer font, asterisks like snow. "We encourage respectful conduct during submissions." Dane barked a laugh so hard it hurt. He covered his eyes and kept laughing with no sound. Phones started pinging like a nest of hornets. Blocks that had merely tolerated violence shifted into third gear. Men who hadn't planned to kill anyone this week walked to the sink and washed their faces like they were getting ready for a job interview, then cased their own neighborhoods for opportunity. A guy hawked proof bags on the corner, heavy-duty Ziplocs with a little line printed on them where you could write a name and a price. "Get up," Rook said. "We find 2 things, meat and news." Dane slid the tin back into his pocket, eyes steady now, nerves cooperating. Ty kicked his sneakers tighter. They rolled the tarp like a ritual and tucked everything where the concrete would remember it. Rook checked the knife's edge on his thumb, sharp. He glanced at Dane. "Half," he said, out of habit, not desire. Dane shook his head. "Already correct," he said, earnest for once. "Let's go be ugly." They moved into daylight like it was a trap that had read their names. The avenue hummed with a new kind of hope, the violent kind. A woman in a parka pushed a stroller with a pit bull in it, blunt in her lips, phone on a lanyard, radiating, "I'm not a hero, but I ain't a bystander either." The bookie boards were packed, odds sliding with every breath. Rook's DMV scowl made the front column ripple. The host's voice kept pretending it was noble to narrate slaughter. "Chicken and a half," Rook said, pointing with his chin at the bodega line. Ty peeled away, bought a rotisserie and 3 rolls with the kind of speed kids learn when they fail at breakfast often enough. He carried it like it mattered. It did. A siren bellowed to their left, stopped, breathed, bellowed again. That was ambulance tone, not police. Rook didn't go nearer. He pivoted 3 doors down where the reflection in a hair salon window showed 2 men practicing murder with their hands, mock-ups, little ghost stabbings into air the way boys mime shots in a driveway. "Watch the knives," Rook murmured. "They're getting socially acceptable." They slid past a pop-up tent where a lawyer in a discount suit explained proof chain to a line of men who'd showered for the conversation. "You need a witness or a badge," he said, "but if you bring your own badge, you'll be arrested." People laughed because they hated the accuracy. At the corner, a makeshift parade rolled through. A TV, scooter, 2-box truck with ladders. Every man on it was geeking. Coke brightness, eyes sprayed open, jawlines trying to chew through the morning. One wore a construction vest over a bulletproof plate carrier. Another carried a cordless angle grinder like a knight with a sword. They whooped when they saw Rook's face on the bodega TV, not recognizing him as him, just loving the idea of violence with instructions. "You ain't blending today," Dane said gently. "I'm blending where it counts," Rook said, and cut them into an alley that smelled like fryer oil and paint thinner. He ate chicken with his fingers, wiped grease on his jeans, sucked salt out of his teeth, and felt the caloric truth talk sense to his blood. Ty stood on a crate and scanned the street like a sous chef prepping danger. A ping jumped from every screen at once. The host took a breath like a priest before a new sacrament. "We have our first official bounty capture," he sang. "Submitting now." The city inhaled together. Rook felt it in his bones. He didn't want to see. He looked anyway. The video was low-res, high hunger. A man on a bathroom floor somewhere with club tiles. A toilet mocked up with LED rope lights. Blue powder smeared across the seat like sadness. The camera skated, frantic, trying to find angles and keep the bloody parts in frame while preserving somebody's idea of style. A woman's voice from behind the camera shouted, "Get the wrist! Get the wrist!" A man, breathing like he'd run up 10 flights, pulled the arm into shot, twisted the watch toward the lens and laughed. "Winner 2, Dane said, voice small and furious. "The DJ, the one with the tattoo on the cheek." He posted bad freestyles. Rook recognized the tattoo slashed by blood. The man's face had that club glow, the unnatural pink that happens when LED meets Coke sweat. The bathroom door was kicked in. The knob lay 3 feet away in a sea of blue dust that had been an 8-ball some minutes ago, before that guy's face met the sink. The camera panned up to show the dance floor just outside. Coke still hanging in the air like a cheap galaxy. A few dancers unaware or pretending to be. Bassline angry because it didn't know the music had stopped. The host's voice pitched low like he wanted to show he could be somber. "Submission received," the crawl said, blooming gold. "Verification in progress." A bar filled like a lie tracking to truth. "Club Temple," Dane breathed. "South Strip." They got a neon crucifix on the stage. "I know the bathroom tile." Shit, Rook's jaw set. "We move," he said. "Not to join. To understand." They cut through an HVAC corridor and slid into a rideshare that had a cracked windshield and a driver who looked like he'd had a late relationship with Faith. Rook gave an address 2 blocks east of Club Temple, voice flat. The driver didn't make conversation. He chewed gum and prayed with his eyes. The car stank of Blunt and Little Pine Tree. South Strip was already a zoo. The LED crucifix bathed the street in holy fake. A crowd gathered like a throat around a cough. Bookies set up right outside, which was a kind of truth even the lottery couldn't sterilize. Money goes where blood is. 2 girls in shimmering dresses filmed themselves crying, then checked the angle, then cried again. A man in a suit stood in front of camera 2, reading from a teleprompter app, promising respect to families and economic opportunities to those who stayed safe. Behind him, a kid with face tats lined up 2 rails on his phone screen and snorted them like a parody with God's own timing. Rook didn't press to the door. He circled to the kitchen entrance where the bouncers smoked slumped blunts and had that look of men who understand they aren't being paid enough to be crucial and still can't help being critical. He nodded once. One of them squinted at him, then at Dane, then at Ty. "Staff?" the guy asked. "Maintenance," Rook said, and it was the particular tone that makes people step back, half authority, half boredom, a flavor of voice that says, "I won't leave if you say no." Inside, heat, steam, shouting, wet tile. A dishwasher banged plates like percussion in a bad church. Cooks, high and focused, pivoted around Gore with the same lethal grace they used for cooking. Because when you work kitchen on the Strip, you learn to move with stupidity. Rook led them through, the kitchen hum a cover, and past the prep counter with its snow of powdered sugar that wasn't sugar. Past the swinging door, the bathroom they'd seen on the stream waited like a body in a suit. 2 cops stood over the threshold practicing compassion faces while the camera that mattered swung on a gimbal 2 inches away, deferring to badges as long as the badges didn't step on the money shot. The sink was spiderwebbed, the bowl red. Blue Coke dust glittered on tile like a bad Instagram filter. The DJ's tattoo, little lightning streak, peered up through the blood, half torn. Rook didn't look long. Witnesses make you part of the story. He drifted back to the dance floor. The crucifix glowed over bodies that had paused and then resumed like momentum forbade stopping. Coke hung in the light like ash in a snow globe. Blunts burned in little defiant galaxies. The booth emptied of the man who'd spun. A second cousin of a second-tier DJ fiddled with knobs as if messing with sound would drown the moral math. People danced because dancing was easier than absorbing the new bounty price for living. Dane watched, jaw pulsing. "You know, he thought he was safe in public," he said. "Online, he said, 'I'm not hiding.' He probably felt famous until his face met the porcelain." "Fame pays awful," Rook said. He clocked paths, exits, rails, the kitchen corridor, the upstairs office. He put them to memory. Ledger would come here later, not because he needed proof, but because he liked map reading where blood had just dried. They cut back out before someone decided 3 faces meant backup killers. On the street, a group of hunters who hadn't gotten their first body yet caffeinated themselves on adrenaline and cheap coffee, arguing about whether you could verify proof with the hand alone if the face was compromised by damage. A woman with a clipboard the size of a grave slab took names and phone numbers and had people sign a form that read "Witness Statement" at the top and "Release" at the bottom. The lottery's pop-up van, white and innocuous, collected submission drives like church collects envelopes. "Keep walking," Rook said. He could feel the eyes on him, the math adjusting. His DMV face lived on every screen. His body was what they wanted to match to it. Some recognized him and didn't say it out loud because saying it gives you jobs you can't complete. At the corner, a kid no older than Ty held a blunt with one hand and a proof bag with the other. He had tears dried into tracks on his cheeks. He looked at Rook like maybe he was a man who'd explain how to be alive and wrong at the same time. Rook hated that look and loved it too. He took the kid's bag, turned it upside down, tapped it twice, handed it back. "Use this for fruit," he said. "Bodies go bad even when they pay." The kid blinked, then made a face like he didn't want to be told a parable. He shoved the bag in his pocket anyway, and turned his head to watch a fight that was pretending to be conversation. By noon, the map had new red dots like measles. The city turned into teams. Crews rolled from block to block, passing blunts like torches, palms glittering with cocaine, laughter sharp as bottle glass. The government had triggered a spree and brought their own paper towels. The cops lined the perimeters and called in medics as if patching throats counted as productivity. A woman with a megaphone tried to read rules. Someone took the megaphone and snorted off it like a dare. Rook steered Dane and Ty away from center and toward a quieter gutter, the space behind a laundromat where crates made a kind of furniture. They ate the last of the chicken with the sour rolls and drank warm soda Ty scavenged from a machine that had a code he knew. Dane's hands stopped shaking. Rook's didn't shake. They pulsed with the kind of steadiness that says everything in you is awake in a way it hates. "You think Mari got through?" Ty asked, wiping grease on his jeans like an oath. "She got through the first circle," Rook said. "The angels know the rest better than we do. They've been saving women from men longer than the lottery thought it invented something." Dane lit a fat blunt he'd rolled like a small log and passed it. Rook took it, swallowed smoke slow, blew it into his sleeve. The leaf didn't make him calm. It made the priorities line up in bullet points his body could read. "Ledger's going to use the bounty to deputize idiots," he said. "He'll let them flush me, then collect the check neat. We need to feed him bad hints." "Like what?" Dane asked, eyes bright. He loved misdirection like he loved a stage. "Like I'm heading east when I'm not. Like I still got my phone when it's dead. Like I'm using the catwalk when I'm below it. Like I shop at the same delis I used to. Love the same roofs, trust the same stupid doors." Dane grinned, ugly and beautiful. "I can sell that. Half the city thinks they know you already. I'll make them sure." "Not yet," Rook said. "First you take Ty to the North Cut and plant 3 lies. The underpass we're not in, the sofa we don't sleep on, the sub-basement we ain't even seen. Give those lies just enough truth to feed a hungry man his own tongue." Dane nodded. "And you?" "I go listen," Rook said. "Ledger will visit the club after the pop wears off. He'll bring a sermon, and a ruler." Ty bristled. "You ain't going alone." Rook put a hand on his head without looking. "I ain't alone. I got you being smarter in a different block." "You better be," Ty said, trying to snarl and almost pulling it off. They broke up like a plan. Dane and Ty peeling north past Laundry Steam and Bargain Neon, Rook drifting south again, past the perfume store that smelled like cheap sweetness over bleach, past a cop car idling without lights, past a mural that now wore a strip of black paint where someone had turned a face into a memory. His feet knew the routes. He unlearned the ones he loved, the ones that make men predictable. Club Temple had calmed to a pretend. Outside, the pop-up van handed out water like it was aspirin. Inside, they were mopping. Blue dust turned to smears, blood iron back down to brown. Rook didn't climb the stairs this time. He went to the alley behind the club, where the smokers made the world real. A woman sat on a milk crate, blunt like prayer, eyes like knives that had cut open expectations and found nothing clean inside. "He dead?" she asked Rook without looking. Not his business, but she knew his face and knew he'd been in 4 places at once today by rumor. "Officially," Rook said. "Unofficial been true all morning." She nodded. "He would have laughed at the bounty," she said. "Then asked me what I was doing tonight, and I would have lied because I like it when men earn truth." "Sorry," Rook said, and meant it, and knew she didn't need his sorrow, but she appreciated the offer being made in a voice that wasn't acting. Ledger arrived the way accountants do, exact, unhurried, with a man carrying 2 coffees a respectful step behind him. He clocked Rook, but didn't make a show. He surveyed the door, the lock, the angle the door took when it was kicked. He measured the day and wrote numbers only he could see. He sipped coffee, handed the second to the bouncer, who flinched and then accepted because accepting free warmth is what men do when their job is boring and their heart is tired. "You ever get bored?" the milk crate woman asked Rook, eyes sideways. "Boredom is a luxury," Rook said. "Same," she said, and the blunt crackled agreement. Ledger finished his audit and walked the alley like a pastor blessing pews. He stopped 2 feet from Rook. "They paid fast," he said, conversational. "Ratings faster," Rook said. Ledger nodded toward the back door. "Mixed powder with blood," he said. 2 most honest products we make." "You always sound like a quote book," Rook said. "Only because I charge for the other thing," Ledger said. He studied Rook's face like he was trying to find an earlier version of it. "You rescuing winners now? That's amateur philanthropy. It'll kill you twice." Rook kept his eyes on the mouth of the alley. People filtered in and out of the morning like nothing was wrong with any sentence. "I don't do it for scoring." "You do everything for scoring," Ledger said, amused. You just hate that part of you because it smells like the people you despise. Rook didn't dignify that. You got freelancers now, he said. Everybody does, Ledger said. The bounty created an industry by breakfast. By dinner we'll have rules. By midnight we'll have memorial t-shirts. How many bodies to buy you a nap? Rook asked. Ledger smiled with his chipped tooth showing like a white flag that had seen things. Not enough to mention. But yours buys me quiet in the part of my head that still believes in plot. You're the only man here who believes in plot, Rook said. The rest of them believe in a number and a bag. Ledger looked past him to where the milk crate woman smoked, unafraid of either of their postures. She believes in both, he said softly. And she's the only one in this alley who will live to be bored. He left with the coffee carrier behind him. Rook watched him go and felt the map adjust again. Circles broadening, lines thinning, exits evaporating into performative safety. The bounty had turned a city full of sins into a day-trip business plan. He ghosted back to the underpass in shadows that learned him and loved him anyway. Dane and Ty were there before him, bright-eyed with success. Planted 3 lies, Dane said, pleased. Sold one to a sponsored idiot with a GoPro who nodded like a bobblehead and told me he had content opportunities. Ty grinned, fierce. I showed a cop the wrong sub-basement, he said. He thanked me like a teacher. I feel dirty. Also tall Rook let both wins be real. He breathed in smoke, sweat, wet concrete, and the metallic whisper of a city counting. Eat, he said. Rest the parts of you that ain't paying rent. Above them, the host announced the bounty payout had cleared. The graphic blinked verified in gold like the city had received a diploma. A second bar, submissions in review, crawled under it. The number ticked upward like snow accumulating in a storm you thought would stop at flurries. Dane lay back and stared at the underside of the bridge like a planetarium. It's gonna be a slaughterhouse by midnight, isn't it? It already is, Rook said. They just turned the lights brighter. Ty hugged his knees. We still got 40-something? 43, Rook said, and they'll be the longest and shortest hours in your life. He closed his eyes for exactly 10 of them, seconds, not hours, and let memory and plan argue. When he opened them, the city had shifted a shade darker, and blue dust mixed with blood had become the new badge of credibility. The government had found a way to make its citizens pay for their own caskets and call it a chance. Rook rolled to his side, found the knife, pressed spine to palm. Moving soon, he said. We're gonna be where they don't draw the map. The bounty just made everyone loud, loud as tells. Dane flicked ash into a bottle cap and nodded. I hear a club in the West Warehouse District doing tribute sets for dead winners. Not for the families, for streams. Then we go west, Rook said. Not because of music. Because Ledger's going to start recruiting in rooms where men think dancing makes them less guilty. Ty cracked his knuckles like he was auditioning for anger. I want to see him trip on that bad foot. He will, Rook said, and almost smiled. But not because we ask him to. Because pride tells it where to be. The screen flashed one more time, like the city was a mouth that couldn't stop chewing. 1 million, paid. It felt like a theme, like a hymn, like a curse men sing when they finally receive exactly what they asked for and find out it's empty. Rook stood and stretched, joints talking back. Dane tucked the tin away like a prayer in a pocket. Ty picked up the empty loaf bag and flattened it like a flag he wasn't willing to throw away yet. Let's go ruin somebody's math, Rook said. And this time there was a small grin in Dane's answering smile, and a spark in Ty's eyes that had nothing to do with foolishness and everything to do with the stubborn part of survival that doesn't need an audience. They left the bridge like thieves who know ownership is a suggestion. The bounty broadcast chased them down the block, all gold font and clean edges. The city opened her throat again and invited blades. Somewhere a new winner tried to make coffee with hands that would not steady. Somewhere, Mari shared a room with women who had learned how to keep death in the hallway by locking 3 doors and lying to men. Somewhere, Ledger iced his knee, wrote a list of ways to make television quieter. The day had turned into a market. Rook hated markets and loved math. He planned to be a subtraction no one accounted for. The West District wore nostalgia like cheap cologne. Brick warehouses turned into art projects, roll-up doors painted with saints nobody prayed to until a DJ dropped their names over bass. Tribute flyers wet glued to utility poles curled up at the edges. Unofficial vigil, all vinyl, prayers and shots, no filming inside. Lies, all of it. Every line was bait. Every candle came with a QR code. Rook kept the river at his back until the streets narrowed into a chessboard of loading docks and fake boutiques. Dane and Ty, ghosted in from the north, cut exactly when they should, grins tight with work done. Dane had residue under his nails, not dirt, glitter from a sponsored Hunter's pop-up booth, and the tin clicked in his pocket like a metronome. Ty had a new hat he didn't explain, and a satisfaction he couldn't hide. 3 lies sold, Dane said. Underpass the cops want? I told a podcast host we sleep there. He hugged me with his eyes. You, Ty said, scrunching nose. I gave a GoPro kid the couch story. He cried he thought he was a journalist. Rook nodded. Good. We go west and listen. They cut through a sawtooth corridor that used to be for forklifts and now hosted scooters and bad decisions. Blunt smoke crawled along the cinder block like ivy. Coke sparkled on phone screens before disappearing up nostrils, a magic trick with worse endings. Men had powdered their courage and mistook buzz for strategy. A woman with mirrored shades sold proof markers, Sharpies with a stencil for initials and time, like she was running a school supply drive for homicide. The vigil was at a warehouse that had been an ironworks back when men's hands were stronger than their profiles. Tonight it was a candlelit rave under a banner that read, R.I.P. Knox, the dead DJ's real name, in bubble letters big enough to make a mother cry. Outside, a long table offered free teardrop stickers, and overpriced commemorative blunts rolled fat and dipped in keef. The keef glittered like fake penance. People paid because guilt loves sparkle. House rules? Dane murmured. None that matter, Rook said. Inside. They adopted the posture of mourners who didn't want to be recognized. A shoulder hunch, a chin dip, the smoke face you wear when you inhale and pretend it's prayer. The doorstaff, 3 bouncers and a grief coordinator with a lanyard, searched purses and pockets. Weapons were theoretically banned, but knives the size of honesty slid through because the room wanted violence like a stage wants monologues. Inside, the warehouse glowed orange with cheap flame and pink with better LEDs. Candles and glass cups dotted the floor like landmines. A projector looped Knox's best angles over the brick, laughing at the camera, mid-fade, throwing a finger gun to the crowd. The DJ booth wore a crucifix neon borrowed from Club Temple for the brand synergy. A vinyl-only set spun, crackles and ghosts between songs. People danced like they were bargaining with a god they didn't believe in. In the corner, a makeshift shrine. Flowers, a snapback, a baggie with a line still inside. 2 blunts burned halfway and propped like chopsticks around a bottle of cognac. Rook let the music wash his edges without dulling them. He counted exits. 3 that weren't obvious. 1 that would break legs. 1 that would break hearts. The ceiling had chain hoists that used to lift steel. Somebody had hung disco balls from them. Lazy circles of light turning the room into a slow galaxy. On the mezzanine, VIPs pretended sadness for cameras. The no filming rule meant every other hand held a phone low. Ledger stood by the loading ramp like a parable in a hoodie, no lanyard, coffee in hand, that angled right foot mispointed toward quiet trouble. He wore the expression accountants put on at funerals, sympathetic, assessing, ready to balance a book the dead never read. Around him, freelancers with elbows that had been taught, sponsored hunters with chest cams blinking red, locals with grief that had turned to opportunity risk fast. Ledger pressed palms, nodded at sentences, shook his head at arrogance with a patience that didn't belong to this room. Dane's jaw clenched hard enough to make a pop. He recruiting. He curating, Rook said. Recruiting is for men who need bodies. He needs styles. He hires temperament. Ty tugged Rook's sleeve, chin toward the shrine. Look, he whispered. A man, older than the crowd by 10 years, knelt by the flowers, not crying, just winded by a memory. He took a blunt from the display and lit it, hand trembling. A woman slapped it from his mouth like mercy done rough. Not yours, she said. He hated you. The room laughed, savage and communal. The man laughed too, the way men laugh when they accept a verdict with grace, and then he left, shoulders smaller than when he came in. Rook felt the current of it. This was a church with rules. Penance was public. Forgiveness was rare and sold at cost. The set shifted to Knox's favorite B-side, bass that walked proud on short legs. The floor jumped with it. In the jump, men with chain wallets, women in black, kids no older than Ty pretending they'd known Knox long enough to deserve proximity to grief and clout. Coke dust hung in the LED haze like confetti that wasn't sure if it was invited. Rook drifted to the ramp, just close enough to catch Ledger's voice. Ledger spoke like he was laying tile, straight lines, clean grout. "$1 million isn't a plan," he told a man with a new plate carrier worn like a medal. "It's a noise. If you chase noise, it kills you between songs. You want proof? Get there first, quiet. You want money? Arrive late, neat. You want both? Learn to breathe on other people's time." The plate carrier nodded like a student hearing a parable he'd tattoo wrong later. "Got it." "No," Ledger said, not unkind. "Try again." The man tried. "We flood exits and—" "You stream," Ledger corrected, "and die." "Exit floods are for children. This room's got 10 exits you can't see without knowing the building before they put lights in it." "So what do you want from me?" the plate carrier pleaded. "Nothing," Ledger said pleasantly. "I want you to go home. Or take pictures, or get a job with a pension. You're not what tonight pays for." The plate carrier's face rearranged itself into wounded pride. He left, muttering to his phone like it was a friend that wouldn't judge. Ledger moved on, shaking a sponsored hand, listening to an ex-cop talk about containment zones, nodding at a woman's half-plan to bait a winner with a glamour girl and a promise. Rook hated the accuracy and admired it anyway. That's the trap with men like Ledger. They know things you know, but they use them like the world owes them interest. He scanned the mezzanine. 2 men not dancing, not mourning, not filming, standing too evenly apart to be strangers. One had wrists with pale watched hands. The other wore a denim jacket nobody could afford without a discount small crime provides. They were flanking the VIP door without making it obvious. Above and behind them, a camera bird fixed in the rigging, pointed at the crowd wide. Sponsored feed. Ledger's setup. "Dane," Rook said. "Lights." Dane's grin got criminal. He fingered through his hoodie pocket and came up with a small tube and a strip of sandpaper. Party trick he kept. Flash paper and magnesium shaving from a scooter brake he'd stolen with his eyes a week ago. "You want pop," he said. "I want angle," Rook said. 3 seconds of stupid where a smart man trips. Ty tugged again. "He see you," he whispered, meaning Ledger. Rook turned his head 3 degrees. Ledger hadn't looked directly at him, but a sliver of grin had risen like a periscope. Recognition without address. Respect with invoices stapled to it. Ledger lifted his coffee like a toast, then turned to a woman explaining she had a cousin in facilities who could kill locks downtown. He was always moving toward later. Dane drifted to the booth like he belonged behind it. He did, in another life. And palmed the tube under the light can, left of the projector, in the shadow where the tech's attention wouldn't go unless the tech got paid for noticing things. The next bass drop came. The crowd bent knees in unison. Dane struck the strip, palmed a flare of white, fed it to the tube. Light hissed like a mean cat. A burst, bright but not dangerous, popped above the booth at the exact moment a chorus line hit. The room gasped, cheered, ducked, laughed. 3 seconds of stupid. Rook used them. He slid under the ramp rope and passed the grief coordinator without permission. The flanking pair looked wrong direction because the room had told them to. Rook slipped the VIP door with a butterfly pop, 1, 2, habit winning. Upstairs, the mezzanine office smelled like printer ink and a candle called Sinner's Orchard. He kept low, cross-crawled to the railing and clocked the camera angles. The sponsor bird fed to a back-end slicker than the lotteries. Ledger wasn't streaming the hunt. He was streaming the room. He wanted a face catalog. Grief is great data. Rook moved on, down a back catwalk that had been OSHA once and now was Vibe. He caught a glimpse through the slats. Ledger ghosting the loading dock, writing a geometry only he could read. On the far wall, a chain hoist hung low, lonely, the hook polished by time and party planners. The rope to its break dangled within reach. Rook gripped it, gave it an accidental-looking tug. The hook drifted a foot. Clean hardware, new cable. Someone had respected the rigging because disco balls are heavier than self-esteem. He made a quiet plan and didn't smile. Downstairs again, the room's temperature had changed. Tribute to Hunt. Someone had shouted "winner" in the far corner, and the floor went wolf-fast, mouth open, eyes wrong. It wasn't him. It was a poor bastard with cheekbones and a bad beard who looked like Rook if your phone lagged and your morals did too. The room realized the mistake and laughed. A cruel, mean wave. The man pulled his hood tighter and acted like he needed the bathroom. Rook dipped away from the laugh and back to Ledger's orbit. He let Ledger see him now. It was a mutual ghosting game. Honest costs more, but it pays longer. Ledger slid up like a lecture beginning. "You made a flare," he said. "You made a file," Rook said, chin to the bird cam. "I made a graph," Ledger corrected. "This room proves a thesis." "Grief monetizes easy," Rook said. "Grief organizes better," Ledger said. "Watch." As if cued, a side door banged, and 3 men carried a mirror onto the dance floor like a casket. Full length, beveled, cheap chic. They set it upright, leaned it to the crowd, and the DJ killed the bass. The room fell through the hole silence makes. The grief coordinator stepped to the front with a microphone. "For Knox," she said, voice too steady. "We look in this thing. We ask who killed him, and if the face ain't yours, you better go find whose it is." The room cheered. Phones lifted. Blunts glowed. Coke flashed like ecclesiastic dust. The mirror caught faces and fed them back like accusations. Some people laughed because they refused to be indicted by glass. Some cried because they wanted to be. Dane returned to Rook's side like a leaf of paper he'd hidden behind an old book. "You want more pop?" he asked, itching. "Patience," Rook said. "We might not even need it." He was right. Violence doesn't miss invitations that loud. A man in a leather jacket, high enough to think he was a thesis, sprinted from the candle sea and cracked the mirror with his forehead like it dared him. The glass spiderwebbed and peeled, slicing his cheek in a V that already looked like a bad logo. The room roared. Someone yelled, "Proof!" because the word had learned to be funny. Blood found candles. Flame flinched. A little fire licked up the bottom of a flyer and died when spilled beer judged it. 2 bouncers grabbed Leather Jacket and walked him outside like a drunk saint. The crowd exhaled relief mixed with disappointment. Ledger didn't laugh. He looked at the crack, at the glass teeth at the bottom, and at Rook. "Don't you just love metaphors?" he said. "Not on carpets," Rook said. "On carpets is where they belong," Ledger replied, tone warm like an oven. A whisper rolled through the warehouse. "Police on Broadway." "Ambulance stuck." "Winner sighted near the pier." Lies and half-lies. Rook kept his eyes on the hoist rope and the way it trailed over the beam. He found the break. He took Dane by the elbow. "We're gonna insult physics," he said. "Oh, my favorite," Dane smirked. They climbed the small ladder by the ramp to the hoist control cradle, a metal plate with a brake lever and a safety pin the size of a stubborn habit. Rook palmed the pin free and took the brake slow, letting the heavy hook travel lazy. Below, grief turned into a hard laugh around a circle of kids building an altar of phones. Ledger slid toward the booth to scold the tech for missing a cable tie. He passed under the hook without looking up because men like him keep their attention in front where the words are. Rook released 6 more inches, then locked. The hook hung like a question over the space between Ledger and the nearest loadout case. He signaled Ty with 2 fingers, left, right. Ty slid along the floor like useful wind. Dane crouched under the cradle, palms flexing, eyes bright like mischief had finally gotten a budget. "On my count," Rook said. 3. Dane didn't ask to know the plan. He liked it better when the street wrote in pencil. 1. Ledger stopped to talk to a woman with a clipboard and the calm of a nurse about to lie gently. The hook swayed an inch. The disco ball above it spun lazy, blind. 2. The DJ dropped the volume to let someone with a mic give a sermon disguised as a toast. The room went quiet enough to hear your own blood. 3. Rook popped the brake. The hook fell slow, then faster, a polished beak dropping. Ledger half turned at the hiss. Dane kicked a crate into Ledger's shin at the right microsecond, not to hurt, to change where his foot would be. Ledger dodged wrong because pride told his bad ankle how to lie. The hook missed his skull by a good hand and bit his shoulder. The armored forearm took the kiss and sang metal. The chain laughed hard, and the hook swung sideways into a sponsored hunter's chest cam, cracking it like brittle candy. The crowd screamed the scream crowds do at a roller coaster, terror cosplaying as joy. Ledger rocked with it, rolled it, gave the hook a shove so it would lose interest. He looked up, found Rook on the cradle, and smiled like a man who liked foreplay. He touched his shoulder where the impact had made a bruise that would brag later. "Cute," he mouthed. Rook yanked the brake again and pinned the hook mid-sway. The sponsored hunter with the broken chest cam swore into a mic like the crowd was the problem. The grief coordinator announced something about respecting the space, and somebody booed. A bouncer threw up a hand in the international sign for "We need liability insurance to still like us." That was the first mistake. The room turned, not vicious, alert. A chant tried to start. People couldn't agree on words. They went back to bass. Rook slid down as if he had a job there. Dane followed, laughter tucked in his chest like contraband. Ty reappeared with 2 bottled waters nobody had paid for. Ledger let them blend into the thick. He didn't chase. He did clap, twice, slow, a quiet little applause just for Rook. Then he moved stageward, caught the DJ's attention with 2 fingers, and bent his head to speak into the music like a priest asking a favor from a god that answered talk. "Time," Rook said to Dane. "We took a free one." "One more?" Dane asked, greedy. "We don't get greedy with men who love gravity," Rook said. They slid out along the dock, past a stack of reverb cabinets repurposed as coffins for someone's old career. Outside, air cooled from blunts and breath, and the crushed orange of the sky bruising toward night. Sirens braided in the distance. A crowd fought politely over whether the bouncer had pushed Leather Jacket too hard. The grief coordinator cried behind a truck, then wiped her face with the professionalism of a person who would make money again tomorrow anyway. Rook leaned against a pillar, took 2 short lines off the key, just enough to keep his vision at razor setting, and passed the key once. Dane mirrored him, eyes bright and neat. Ty refused with a small proud lift of his chin. "Good." "What's next?" Dane asked, boots tapping a rhythm too quick for the room. "Find who's first to sell Ledger our angles," Rook said. "Inside?" Ty asked. "Everywhere," Rook said, "but start with mouths that love microphones." They worked the block. They listened to men talk to cameras and to women pretend not to listen, and to teenagers in drip tell the truth because truth is cheaper when you're not paying for a haircut yet. The pattern emerged stupid fast. A slick channel called Hunt Right Now offered a push alert. Rook's hideout, underpass, green couch, sub-basement 14B. Dane grinned without joy. "That's mine," he said, "and they paid for it." The comments were a mess. Cap/he lying/trust bro/paywall. Dane.com/link. Sponsored hunters redirected followers to a subscription tier for the full map. Cops circled the wrong underpass. A sponsored team rolled to green couch. A freelance pair got lost and argued because one of them didn't like walking in puddles. That buys us 2 hours, Rook said. Ledger knows, Dane said. He always knows, Rook said. He just lets children have recess. They turned the corner and landed in a scene the city specialized in now. A pop-up Respect rally doubling as a mobile studio. A host in a white varsity jacket emblazoned with a tasteful RIP posed with a mic, making faces that meant sincerity. Behind him, an LED banner, safety, solidarity, streaming. It would have been funny if it didn't bleed. Let's go ruin an outro, Dane murmured. Be gentle, Rook said. We need his lies later. The host caught Rook's DMV glare like a favorite angle and pounced. Camera to face, mic up, smile nuclear. We're live, he beamed. We're asking the community, do bounties help or... Rook put a hand on the mic and lowered it a degree. Ask your sponsors, he said, voice flat. Ask the men who write your checks if they want children to live long enough to regret tonight. The host blinked, charm stuttering. We, urge safety. Sell it to your mother, Rook said, and stepped past, Dane and Ty on his wake like punctuation. The camera followed for a beat, and then didn't. The host turned back to his cue cards and found the exact sentence that had let him sleep last night. They drifted 2 blocks down to the freight spur, where gravel remembered trains. Rook let the city's wind read his skin. Ledger's circle had tightened. He could feel it in the way sirens harmonized and drone hum lost patience. The bounty had made amateurs into wolves. Wolves were noisy. Ledger would answer with silence. They dropped into a stairwell that led to nothing. Cement and cigarettes, someone's graffiti prayer. God sees the receipts. Rook sat. Dane sat. Ty sat and faked being taller. Vitals, Rook said, taking inventory like a medic in a war that refused to learn the Hippocratic Oath. Knees. Talking but not screaming, Dane said. Hands? Ready for bad choices, Dane said. Head? Hungry with manners, Dane said, grinning. Ty? Good, Ty said. Worried about Mari. She's with women who make fear pay rent, Rook said. She'll hate rooms forever. She'll live in them anyway. They shared a blunt, the leaf tendering their nerves without signing their souls away. The smoke made the stairwell a smaller church. Far off, a gunshot wrote a period. Closer, laughter tried to erase it and failed. Rook tilted his head back against the cold, counted silently, recited exits in order, catalogued faces of men he'd fight in the next 8 hours. Ledger, 2 freelancers with church boy wrists, a sponsored clown with a broken chest cam, and a smile that would crack easy with an apology. 3 locals who'd graduate to nightmares if they lived. A cop who would pretend not to see him because the city loves a folk hero until it doesn't. Dane's phone, dead since last night, remained a brick in his pocket. Good. No pings, no maps, no calls to mothers. He scratched the back of his head and winced at the spot where a baton had once introduced itself. You think the lottery office ever looks at this and throws up? He asked. They look at numbers and go to lunch, Rook said. The janitor throws up. Then he throws up again when he realizes his mop is part of a press release. Ty made a sound that might have been a laugh and might have been a threat. We going back to the bridge? We're circling, Rook said. Bridge ribs, catwalk, culvert, the tar pasture. The couch we don't sleep on. The sub-basement that doesn't exist. We let them chase the noise while we collect quiet. Dane nodded, stood, stretched, knuckles popping like bubble wrap. You want to make the West Loop one more time? Ledger still sniffing the air. Once, Rook said. Then we go under. The bounty turned the sky mean. They rose. Rook smoothed his coat, adjusted the knife like greeting an old friend, and let the city write a new map across his skin. The sun fled, and the neon got braver. Somewhere a mother turned the TV off and held her kid's face so she could teach them what that meant. Somewhere a man wrote a list of excuses he'd try out on a judge if he lived to see one. Somewhere Ledger massaged his bruised shoulder, smiled at the chainhook's kiss, and told himself the chapter title he'd use when he finally wrote a book the city didn't deserve. They walked, 3 bodies in a river of bodies, their faces low, their eyes up, their blood in the right speed. Bass shook brick. Blunts fogged decision. Coke sharpened men who were not knives into believing they were. Rook breathed it all and let none of it buy him. When they reached the corner where the vigil had burned grief into brand, the candles were out, the shrine trampled, the mirror in pieces, shards glinting like a lesson nobody learned. 2 kids skated through it, wheels crunching glass, laughter wild and undeserving. A janitor swept with a broom that had seen more confetti than truth. He nodded at Rook like he recognized a man who'd be alive in the morning and didn't know whether to resent or admire it. Rook nodded back and kept the night moving. The weather went from bruise to black silk, and the city put on jewelry, blue strobes, red wash, neon fonts that pretended to be saints. Rook kept the river's cold breath behind his ears while he read the west grid like a playbook. Mezzanines, alleys, the tilt of metal stairs, where animals pause before they pounce. Dane walked half a step to his left, chin down, hands quiet. Little Ty ghosted on Rook's hip, small enough to vanish and stubborn enough not to. They traced the freight spur toward the underbones where Dane's lies were fattening hunters. On the big public screen, the host's teeth gleamed while a ticker crowed about community cooperation. The number under submissions in review kept climbing like a bad joke that wouldn't run out of breath. "How long till they get hungry enough to eat their own?" Dane asked, half whisper, eyes scanning glass for reflections. "They already are," Rook said. "They just call it verification." They cut through a receiving yard quiet as a confession booth. A van with plumbing and drain magnets idled there again, same pair of corporate streamers in breathable shells, eyes bright with a caffeine that doesn't come in cups. The passenger was chopping rails on the back of a clipboard with a hotel key, all business. The driver held a blunt in his left hand the way a man holds a pen when he's signing a contract he shouldn't. Their chest cams blinked like patient lies. Rook bent to tie his lace, really to count shoes, angles, paths. Dane caught the cue and slid his palm across the ground, collecting a thumbprint of dust for later. Ty didn't look. He listened, the way good kids learn when the world starts screaming. They moved on, across a patch of cracked asphalt where weeds busting through looked like hands. Ahead, the corner lit up. Bookie board on a milk crate, numbers wiped and rewritten so fast the ink squeaked. Rook's DMV glare, center column. Odds had shifted again, everyone convinced they'd be the one who cashed his death. He let it live. Obsession makes people clumsy. The tribute set warehouse was vomiting mourners into the night by now. Everyone needed to be in the next place where something awful would pay. A girl wept into a camera with her tongue out like she couldn't decide which face got her more love. A man held up a Rip Knox blunt like he wanted to baptize himself in it. Ledger's shape ghosted the far ramp, then vanished, then ghosted again. Patient tied. "Underpass?" Dane asked. "Not ours," Rook said. "We looped them." They slid past a metal door with a keypad. Rook punched 1234 and got a green light because vanity is everywhere. Stale air kissed them. Integrity did not. Inside was a long corridor with an old office at the end, glass wall spidered from a previous argument with a chair. The room had been converted into a pop-up proof booth. A ring light sat on a tripod, halo ready. A table held Sharpies, latex gloves, evidence bags with printed lines for name/time/witness/location. A man with sideburns and a lanyard labeled compliance polished his glasses and asked, "Are we here for clarity or closure?" "Neither," Rook said and kept moving. The man didn't stop them. Nobody stopped anyone anymore. They just tried to sell them something first. They exited into the alley behind a strip of artisan storefronts. The alley had 3 doors and one rust ladder bent into a question mark. Rook paused and listened with his jaw. There it was, a crowd's intake of breath 3 streets over, the wet laugh of a man who'd found powder and purpose at the same time, the hum of drones adjusting their altitude for a better angle. A scooter flock ripped past the alley mouth, lights blue like toy police. One scooter peeled off wrong, caught a pothole, skittered. The rider pinwheeled. His phone flew. It landed at Rook's foot, screen up. Hunt right now, live comment blizzard. Rook flipped it with his boot and watched the reverse. Dozens of men running toward a bench under a green couch mural. Phone cameras up, blunts clenched like cigarettes in movies. Dane chuckled. Mean. Couch sold, he said. Good, Rook said. Let them waste cardio. They emerged onto a side street where a bodega's radio bled meringue, and the owner's son taped a no-proof submissions inside sign to the glass like that ever worked. Across from it, a shutter rattled and rolled, revealing a basement lounge with a glow like a secret. On the window, tonight, tribute sets, respect only, no phones. In the doorway, phones everywhere. Ledger? Ty asked, chin tilt. Not his kind of room, Rook said. His kind listens from the ramp and writes checks. A man in a long leather coat came out of the lounge with a grin that would break if you breathed too hard on it. He palmed a vial, then a syringe, the way magicians palm coins. The metal flashed under the street lamp, dirty little tooth. His pupils looked like angry pinpoints. His step looked like spring steel. He spotted Rook's shape and brightened as if he'd just found a name tag for murder. Yo, he sang, I want the million and the legend. Legend comes with dental, Dane said without smiling. Leathercoat laughed, a barking sound that didn't know when to stop. In one motion he jabbed the syringe toward Rook's neck like it was a cheap sword, and he had a personal grudge against carotids. Rook got small, let the jab blow past his ear, trapped the wrist, and rotated it until tendons made high violin sounds. The syringe fell. Ty's sneaker found it and socketed it into darkness. Leathercoat switched tools without shame. Small hooked blade, reverse grip, the kind of knife you buy, because the box said tactical when you meant theatrical. He slashed at Rook's belly and learned in half an inch what foreign sand had taught Rook years ago. If the angle's wrong, the wound belongs to the other man. Rook took the knife hand, ate a shallow cut on purpose to ruin the rhythm, and sank his thumb into the meaty notch where hand and wrist argue. Leathercoat hissed and tried to headbutt. Rook met him with an elbow that whispered across the bridge of his nose, not breaking, just erasing confidence. Fold, Rook said. Go hunt a rumor. Leathercoat made a choice that only cocaine makes. He grabbed Dane by the hoodie with his left and tried to drag him into the blade with his right. Dane dropped his weight, let the fabric stretch, then kicked the inside of Leathercoat's knee. Something old gave. Leathercoat shouted, not pain, insult. He slashed again, wild. Rook knocked his forearm against the brick with a short, rude kiss. The knife clanged. Leathercoat went for the syringe again and realized it had taken a vacation. He swore by 3 saints with no jurisdiction and reached into his coat for a third thing. Rook didn't wait to find out what it was. He hooked the man's ankle with a chain he kept coiled, yanked his feet to the clouds, and let his back meet ground. A phone crowd gathered at the mouth of the alley, murmuring like pigeons deciding which hand had bread. Proof! Someone yelled from the crowd, automatic. Rook knelt, not to kill, to audit. He tipped Leathercoat's chin up with 2 fingers and looked into his pupils until the man could see past the coke and into the math. No, Rook said. Go hunt a ghost. Leathercoat heard it in something deeper than ears. He rolled to his side, pulled himself up with dignity on layaway, and limped into the lounge to find a different fantasy. The crowd booed. Whack! Someone shouted. You just let him go? You want a show? Dane asked. Buy a stream. They moved on before the crowd's disappointment got entrepreneurial. Past them, 2 freelancers, church boy wrists, the ones from the catwalk, paced a block, like dogs scenting an invisible bone. Rook catalogued their gear. Truncheons with weighted heads, small shields, a hook of their own. He didn't break stride. He trusted the shadow to make him 3 inches shorter. Underpass next, Dane tried again. Couch first, Rook said. I want to see men swear they're smart. They took the narrow corridor behind a shuttered print shop and came out in time to see the couch mural block turn into a tailgate. Scooters, bikes, a pickup whose bed hosted 3 dudes passing a bottle and a GoPro. A sponsored team in a van had parked on the sidewalk and unrolled a little red carpet for interviews. A cop stood 6 feet from their camera, arms crossed, pretending his ears didn't work. We got it on good authority the fugitive sleeps under here, the host said into the lens. Our premium subscribers. Rook didn't hear the rest. He was laughing silently in a way he couldn't stop. Dane's grin tilted, satisfied and mean. Ty put both hands in his pockets so he wouldn't clap. Rook plucked a fat stub of blunt from behind his ear, sparked it, took one drag, and exhaled into his sleeve. Smoke curled up like a rumor and vanished. He flicked the roach into a puddle and watched the ripples name him liar. Then he tipped his chin toward a drain gate where the city coughed up secrets. We go under, he said. Not here. Where nobody sent a push alert. They cut north and east until the freight lines became quiet law and the river's whisper wore iron. Rook found the culvert that had loved him twice already and dropped into its throat. Dane followed, Ty after. The tunnel breathed cool and honest. Sound turned simple. They walked hunched past chalk marks that looked like math problems someone had tried and failed. Rook counted the echoes and timed his step with them so his footfalls felt like part of the tunnel's memory. At a lateral junction he stopped and let the night speak. A light dithered on the far wall, green again, night vision doing scout work. Voices careful, not Ledger's cadence, the church boy freelancers. They were learning, and that made them dangerous. Rook slid into a recess, put his forearm over Ty's chest, and felt the small bird heart in there beat like it was paying rent. Dane stilled so hard his shoulders disappeared. The freelancer's light wobbled as they argued convention. Left first or right first? Do you trust your back to a culvert? Are you supposed to announce yourself before you stab a shape you can't fully see? One of them, a voice with Sunday school vowels, said, You smell that? Leaf, the other said, Thin trail. He's close. Rook swallowed smoke laughter and put his palm over the tunnel's wall. The stone had a cold he could borrow. He pressed it against his face until his skin believed the lie, and his blood softened its signature. The light drifted closer, solved nothing, drifted away. Wrong notch, one whispered, and they moved on down the other branch toward a pop-up lie Dane had planted behind a green door that didn't exist. Rook let his shoulders grow back slowly. Ty exhaled and shook out his hands because he had to do something with the electricity. Dane bumped him with a grin so small it wasn't visible to cameras. You just beat a movie, he whispered. They kept under until the tunnel kissed daylight behind a sheet metal fence. Rook lifted the bottom and slid them into a yard littered with pallets and the skeleton of a box truck. The air tasted like rain gone metallic. Somewhere close, a chant tried to be a hymn and failed. A drone hovered, patient as a cat watching a bird bath. Food, Rook said. Noise chews calories. Dane scrounged a bag of chips from a machine that had lost faith in its own dollar reader. Ty produced 2 apples from his hoodie, the way magicians produce doves. They ate with the reverence of men who know a belly is armor. Then the sirens changed tone, the way they do when the city decides to pretend it cares about rules again. A voice on a loudspeaker urged residents to disperse from active bounty zones. The crowd booed and held their phones higher out of spite. The sky coughed a mist. Rook's knee sent a telegram about earlier mistakes. He rolled it, told it to file a complaint later. We're going back west, he said. Not to the vigil. The mini-mart's Dane frowned. Why the corner stores? If you want to hear truth after midnight, sit where tired people buy batteries, Rook said. The mini-mart they chose had a fluorescent hum and a clerk who'd weaponized indifference. A pixelated footage loop above the counter showed shoplifters of the month, with faces blurred badly. Two men in work boots leaned against a rack of cheap lighters, arguing quietly about whether their cousin's cousin should get a cut when he'd only carried a bag. A woman bought diapers and a fifth of cheap vodka with money crumpled like a letter she hadn't wanted to write. Outside, a guy hawked commemorative blunts with Knox stamped on the wrap in fake gold. Ty looked up at the camera and memorized the angle. "You hear?" said the man in boots, seeing Rook and not seeing him. "They got the dockside heater, big one, and they selling access to it by the minute. Plug your phone in, upload your proof, get your little gold bar portable morality," his friend said, and actually laughed. Rook bought 3 waters and a pack of paper cones Dane liked for rolling Keef blunts when the world stopped spinning. It hadn't stopped. He left the change on the counter like a tiny bribe to reality. The clerk looked at his face and decided not to decide. They drifted out with the smokers and leaned on a cold hood, listening to the street tell on itself. A fight broke and died 2 doors down. Someone played a Knox set from a Bluetooth speaker, like a prayer with commercials. A child cried the way tired children do, without heat, and somebody shushed but didn't comfort. A drone tilted, reconsidered angles, and pointed north. "Ledger's circle tightening," Dane said, reading the machine's posture. "Yeah," Rook said. "He'll try to use the new rule. Million per proof means men will do our searching for him." "Then we starve him," Ty said, surprising himself with strategy and voice at the same time. Rook nodded. "We starve him. Their patients bought them intel by accident." A sponsored hunter with a broken chest cam, the one Rook had cracked with the hook, stumbled up the block, swearing into a lapel mic for someone who wasn't listening. He had a bag of ice on his wrist and a scowl like humiliation rents expensive. He shoved the "Hunt right now" host, who shoved back like a man trained in theater combat. Cameras swiveled. Ledger wasn't there. That meant he was where it mattered. "Bridge," Rook said, "but not ours. The south span. He'll try to own ribs and midspan." They took side streets and service corridors until the river widened and the south bridge rose like an iron sermon. Under it, ribs, culverts, pillars like huge dumb gods. On it, patrol lights, drone flashes, hunters trying to look like people. Rook kept below. He felt Ledger above like a weight on a scale you can't see. A low whistle drifted from the shadows, 2 notes made of habit. Rook's back went tight. Dane's hand found the bottle. Ty crouched. From behind a pillar, a woman came out slow. Head wrap, calm eyes. One of the angels. She didn't smile, she nodded, and the nod meant more than grins ever could. "She's through 2 doors, the angel said softly. "We change beds again before dawn. She asked what color slush the kid wanted. I told her blue is out." She laughed. I liked the sound Rook's jaw loosened a click he didn't know it had made. "Thank you," he said. The angel tipped her chin toward the bridge deck. "Up there it's about to be stupid," she said. "A sponsored team paid a tug captain to light the water so their drone can see proof reflections. Men keep buying better flashlights instead of better decisions." Rook couldn't help it. He smiled with half his mouth. "Sounds like a show." "It is," she said, and vanished into a dark the city had forgotten to rent out. They slid along the rib to where the deck's noise came through steel like a rumor told on a staircase. Rook crouched at a vent gap and looked up through grate. Boots, knees. The bottom of a banner stand that said, "Community Safety" in a font that belonged on a juice bar. Ledger's voice, low even. "No stampede," he was telling the sponsored men. "You'll fall. Gravity don't change her rate for subscribers." A shout exploded 2 spans over. "Winner!" someone lied. The crowd boiled in that direction, phones like torches. Ledger didn't take the bait. He has his own. He pointed to a team and sent them the other way, toward the quiet. Rook studied the seam, the timing. "We can't win a push," he said. "We win a pull." Dane grinned, catching the physics. "Make 'em step back." "Yeah," Rook said. He palmed his chain and picked a rib crossbar within reach of the grating just above. He slung the chain, looped it on, and tugged gently until he felt a certain give, bolt loosened by weather and municipal neglect. He tugged harder. The bolt squealed, then leapt. A section of guard mesh rattled and sagged. Boots above skittered, voices rose. A drone dropped 2 feet in surprise, then corrected. "Back up," a cop voice snapped. "Back! Back!" Rook tugged again, enough to make it sound worse than it was. The crowd gave ground in a little wave. In the wave, gaps. In the gaps, the air he liked. Space where choices can be made. Ledger's men spread their palms, controlled panic with posture, the only tactic that ever works. "We done?" Dane asked. "For now," Rook said. "We made the street breathe." They slid off the rib and into the dark again, across a spill of rocks slicked by the river's opinion. Rook's knee sent another memo. He filed it. Ty kept pace with a jaw set like a small door. They found a culvert mouth and ducked inside just as a sponsored team tried to stage an outreach interview at the rail with a man who had just learned now would be a bad time to regret his haircut. Back in the cathedral underworld, they spread the tarp and sat with their backs to cold. Dane rolled a keef-weighted blunt with the paper cones he'd bought, slow and neat, like a craftsman making a chair. The first pull steadied him, not because Leaf is magic, but because Leaf is honest. Rook took a small one. Ty declined because he liked the feeling of new competence more than smoke. "We got hours left," Dane said, voice hoarse. 42, Rook said. The number sounded like a locker that wouldn't open without a kick. "You think the billion even shows up?" Ty asked. "Like, if you live." Rook stared at the river across the dark. The water kept going without permission. "I think the danger shows up," he said. "I act like the money does so that the danger doesn't get the last word." Dane let that settle like ash. Then he leaned his head back and listened to a Knox track a car thumped 2 blocks away, the bass traveling through rebar into starlight nobody could see. Up on the screens, a gold bar flashed, another bounty paid. The city screamed and laughed and choked and kept buying commemorative blunts. The lottery van processed grief into payouts like a factory that didn't have to care where the product went after delivery. The cops widened their perimeter and closed their eyes. The bookies printed new odds. The sponsored hunters reset their thumbnails. Ledger rubbed his shoulder and decided Rook would be more interesting alive one more night. Rook sat with his knife on his thigh, palm on its spine, and finally let his head touch concrete. For a handful of minutes, something less than sleep and more than a blink, he let his body run diagnostics. Dane took watch with the bottle in one hand like a preacher holding notes. Ty hummed a song he'd learned from a woman who braided hair and lied to cops with art. The night didn't end. It rotated. That's how this city does mercy. When Rook opened his eyes, the dark had changed shades, and the drone hum had learned patience. Somewhere east, a scream spiked and flattened like a bad radio. Somewhere west, a generator coughed and died. Above, the bridge ribs kept their hymn. "Dawn?" Dane asked. "Later," Rook said. "Now we move to the couch we don't sleep on, wave to the cameras, and make them late for their lunch." He stood, rolled his shoulders, rolled his knee, checked the chain, bottle, blade, streaked his finger along the tin, and left it clean. He looked at Ty. "You stay 2 paces closer than you think looks cool," he said. "Copy," Ty said, mouth thin, eyes bright. They stepped out from the culvert into a world that had subtracted 2 more people and added 20 new lies. The bounty posters fluttered in a wind that smelled like metal and leaf and greed. A city this loud shouldn't have been able to hear its own heartbeat. It did anyway. Rook made sure his matched it, then turned toward the map he'd carved in his head and walked his people into the last hour of a day that had refused to end.